Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into something every business needs to master, a playbook for turning all that hard work you do into actual, healthy, high margins. So let me ask you a question. Does your team feel like they're constantly underwater? Calendars are totally jammed, clients seem happy, but when you check the bank account, the numbers just aren't making sense. Sound familiar? Yeah, you are definitely not alone. It's a classic and dangerous trap. And here's why that trap is so critical. The great Peter Drucker put it perfectly. Profit isn't just about making a buck. It's the acid test. It's the ultimate proof that your business model is actually valid, that it works. To really bring this to life, we're going to walk through the story of a company we're calling Next Wow Systems. They were right on the brink of total burnout. But they managed to pull themselves back by taking 7 very specific, very smart steps. So let's dig into exactly how they turned things around. Okay, so first we have to understand the situation they were in. NextWow was stuck deep in what's called the busy but broke paradox. And that's that really dangerous spot where all the activity feels like progress, but it's really just hiding a massive financial problem. I mean, if you looked at them from the outside, NextWow seemed like they were on top of the world. Their best people were in huge demand, clients were banging down the door, and their project list was full for months to come. On paper, it looked like they were absolutely killing it. But of course, behind closed doors, it was a totally different story. Picture this, a tense board meeting, and the CFO just drops this bomb. Revenue is growing by almost 20%, but profit has vanished. Can you just imagine the silence in that room? They were working harder than ever just to stand still. And this wasn't just a bad quarter problem. We're talking about an existential risk here. Seriously, their cash reserves were so thin that if one big client paid an invoice a little late, they might not have been able to make payroll. They were literally weeks away from potential insolvency. So the leadership team had no choice. They had to ask a really tough question. Where on earth is all our profit going? And that kicked off this huge investigation to find what they started calling the margin killers.
And what they found wasn't one big thing. No, it was death by 1,000 cuts. You had scope creep just treated as normal, clients asking for one little tweak here and there that never got billed. Project managers were just fighting fires all day, not looking at the financials. And worse, their most expensive engineers were stuck doing low-value work. But the biggest killer? Get this. Nobody was even measuring the profit margin on individual projects. Nobody had a clue.
And all of this led them to one simple but massive realization. They were amazing at delivering projects, but they weren't running project delivery as a business. That little shift in mindset, well, it changed everything. Okay, so with that realization, they got to work. They didn't just sit around admiring the problem. They started building what they called their margin recovery playbook. Here's what it looked like. They rolled out 7 different initiatives all at once, and each one was designed to plug a specific leak in their profits. Now, to really see how this worked, let's zoom in on 2 of the most powerful moves they made, beefing up their governance, and finally making time traceable. So first, they gave their project governance some real teeth. You see, the old project reviews were just polite status updates, but the new meetings, they became intense financial control sessions. They stopped asking, "Are we on schedule?" and started asking the real question, "What's our margin erosion on this project?" And to make this work, they built a new weekly dashboard for every single project manager. It was armed with powerful, forward-looking metrics. They started forecasting the final margin, not just looking at past revenue. They even put a dollar amount on financial risks. For the very first time, the delivery teams and the finance department were actually speaking the same language. Now, the second game changer was making time traceable. People were filling out timesheets, sure, but no one was really analyzing the data. They quickly figured out that their most valuable asset, their team's time, was just slipping through their fingers. And when they finally dug in, they found this. A massive 35% of all their team's logged hours were going into this black hole of non-billable work, things vaguely labeled internal support or miscellaneous. This wasn't just a little inefficiency, this was literally unbilled revenue walking right out the front door every single day. Ultimately, all 7 of these levers had to work together. It wasn't just about one fix. Tighter contracts, smarter pricing, real scope control, financial governance, they weren't separate ideas. They were all part of one integrated playbook designed from the ground up to protect and grow profit. So, the big question, did any of this actually work? Oh yeah, it worked. The turnaround was way faster and more dramatic than anyone on the team had dared to hope. Let's look at the numbers. Get this. In one single quarter, their average project gross margin leaped from a shaky 24% to a super healthy 37%. Just stop and think about that for a second. In only 3 months, they completely changed the core profitability of their entire business. And it wasn't only about margins. Because they beefed up their contracts and their invoicing, they slashed the average time it took to get paid from 58 days all the way down to 36. That immediately fixed their cash flow and wiped out that scary risk of insolvency.
And here it is, the final score. By the end of the year, NextWell's total net profit climbed from a razor-thin 2.3% to a really impressive 12.5%. They didn't suddenly start working harder. They started working smarter. They finally started running projects like a real business.
So what can we all take away from NextWell's story? Well, their playbook is basically a blueprint that any of us in a project-based business can learn from. So what's the bottom line here? First, profitability is not a finance problem to solve at the end of the quarter. It's a delivery issue that you have to manage every single day. That means you have to be relentless about enforcing scope. You have to measure the right things, like project margin, in real time. And you have to treat every single hour as the valuable currency it is. It's really about empowering your teams with the financial data and the authority to make smart, profitable decisions. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. You and your team, you're probably fantastic at delivering amazing, high-quality work for your customers. But the real question, the one that matters, is this. Are you set up to deliver that quality profitably? Because the answer to that question is the true test of your business's validity. Thanks for watching The Explainer.